I've never done a YouTube live, so I'm very interested in the process. Okay. So we are all good to get started. So hi, everyone. My name is Lali Delgado. I'm an admissions counselor here at Northwestern, and I particularly oversee the Midwest region. So if you are from Minnesota, Kansas, Missouri, or Wisconsin, I'd be reading your applications. And today we have three lovely current students from Northwestern. I'm going to go ahead and give the mic to Serena. So Serena, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us like where you're from, what you're studying, and the school that you're in. And can you also tell us like the year that you transferred into Northwestern as well?
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Serena Mehta. I am a sophomore at Northwestern, and I just transferred before my sophomore year. So I transferred after my freshman year. I'm in Weinberg, and I am majoring in international studies and political science with a minor in global health. And yeah, is there anything else I had to add to that? Okay, awesome.
Lena or Aya, you can go ahead, whoever you'd like.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Hi, everyone. My name is Lena. I am a junior in Weinberg, and I transferred my sophomore year. So I've been here for a little over a year now. I am an Asian American Studies major and a legal studies minor.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aya Masri. I am also in Weinberg. I'm a sophomore. And like Serena, I just transferred after my freshman year, right before sophomore year. So I've been here for around 6 months, and I'm majoring in biological sciences, and I have a minor in business institutions.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So before we get started in the transfer panel, I do want to give a little quick overview about admissions for transfer students. And if you have any questions throughout my small presentation, feel free to drop your questions to the chat. We'll answer it throughout the presentation. So the deadline for all transfer applicants is March 15th. And that is for you to be considered to be admitted and be enrolled with at the start of the fall quarter. Some items for you to keep in mind as you're doing your transfer application is we need your common application in addition to your Why Northwestern statement. Really think about the Why Northwestern statement. Don't just say, I look good in the color purple. I want to study science. Like, be very specific. You have tons of resources within YouTube, the school's website, social media, and different ways for you to connect with current students to get to learn more about Northwestern, and really be specific. Like, if you're interested in Portuguese and Spanish, like what are classes you want to take, professors you want to work with, or opportunities that Northwestern has to offer. And think about that supplement as a two-way street. You're telling Northwestern why you should be admitted, but you're also telling Northwestern why we need you on campus. We're going to need your transcript from your secondary school, an official transcript from the current university that you're in, a college report, obviously your transcripts, test scores if you decide to submit them, and a deposit. I'm going to drop the link in a short amount of time with the link that has information about the transfer process. But now we can go ahead and get started. So again, Lena, Aya, and Serena, feel free. You all can answer the question or you can bounce off each other. But the first question that I'd like to ask is, how was your transfer process at Northwestern? So whoever would like to tackle that.
I can start. So my transfer process, I transferred from a bigger state school. And so coming to Northwestern, the difference in how I was treated as a student coming into university for the first time was very different. As a transfer at Northwestern, it was a much more personalized process. So there was a lot of there's Wildcat Welcome Week, for example, which is a week that is set in order to make the freshmen and the transfers feel more integrated into society, or like within Northwestern, and you had PA groups, which as a transfer, yours is filled with other transfers. So it was a really great way to meet other people who were also transfers, but then also other people that were coming into the school. And they had a lot of events throughout the week for everyone to get to know each other. So it was really great.
Awesome. And then in terms of housing, obviously, Northwestern does have a 2-year requirement for students to live on campus. All of you came in as sophomores. So does someone want to talk a little bit more about housing and just building community at Northwestern, specifically within the housing dorm life aspect?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just start a little bit and then you can go after Serena. So I actually think where I lived and like how I interacted with res life was really important to my transition here. So I'm not quite sure how it is now or how it will be from year to year, but my year, a lot of people ended up living in one dorm, which is our largest dorm on campus, called Foster Walker Complex, or Plex for short. And I don't know, people have mixed feelings about the dorm, but it's really nice because a lot of other transfers also get placed in that dorm. And it has 2 dining halls. So whenever I would go down to eat, there would be other transfers there or other people who were new students. So it was really just nice to have those other people around me that were also new to the school, but not necessarily first years. And something that I did just to kind of meet as many people as possible was every time I went down to eat, I would just sit across from someone else who was sitting alone and then just like say hi and like start a conversation. A lot of those people ended up being transfers and a lot of those people weren't, but everyone I talked to was super nice, super welcoming. And then also something else about housing is that every residential area, so we have 4 residential areas throughout campus just based on like where you are placed throughout the school. I lived in the Southwest residential area and they have events all the time. So they have an event every once in a while called Snacks by Southwest. One of the res colleges will have it in their common area, and they just basically hand out food from like local restaurants or bakeries. So that's also a really great way to kind of interact with the people living in the dorms, the people on campus, and other transfers as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And maybe Serena, you can tackle this question after your second year at Northwestern. Given that most of the students do live off campus, did you feel like you had built a community and kind of were ready to kind of live with friends, or kind of what was your journey afterwards?
Yeah, for sure. So as a current sophomore, I still live in a dorm on campus. And I guess, yes, a lot of students after their sophomore year kind of move off campus, get an apartment. And at first, coming in as a transfer student, that is a little scary, because you have this feeling that like people have their friend groups already and they kind of have those communities that they want to live with after they move out of a dorm. And although you sometimes feel it, to be honest, like most people I've met have been super welcoming to transfer students. And then something I mentioned earlier was Wildcat Welcome was really important to me. And that's actually where I found the people that I'm living with in an apartment next year at my junior year. And so through that like week, although a lot of people will say it is tiring and you do a lot of events, like it is worth it. And I found all of my closest friends through Wildcat Welcome. So at first it is a little scary kind of figuring out how you're going to find that community to live with, because it's not the same as living in a dorm. Like it's an apartment, it's obviously a little different, but I don't think it was a hard experience to go through. It just takes a little time and patience. And I mean, if you're already going through the transfer process, you know what patience is like and wanting to find that community. So it just takes a little time to figure it out, but it definitely was not hard. And yeah, I've already signed a lease for an apartment, so I'm excited. So it is like you find that community, and it's super easy to get into.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So many of you have touched up on, Wildcat Welcome Week or different resources that are available on campus for transfer students, but I was wondering if we can go a little bit more in detail and kind of share the different resources, whether it's academic, Res Live, campus orgs. What support systems have you found here at Northwestern that other transfer students should know about?
Something that was important to me after I came to Northwestern, so I'm Lebanese, so my Middle Eastern background is really important to me. And so joining the MENA Club, which is the Middle Eastern and North African Club. It was really good in my integration to Northwestern because I was able to meet a lot of people that came from the same background as me, regardless of whether or not they were transfers. And so kind of just having that cultural background and that cultural group backing me up throughout my first couple of months at Northwestern was a really good community for me to build. And now a lot of those people that I met through that club are just like my friends and not just my club friends. So it was really great.
And my second question, and Serena or Lena, feel free to chime into this. How was your process with transferring credits from your previous institution to Northwestern? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
I can start to tackle and then Lena can take on from there. It honestly wasn't too bad. At my previous institution, I also went to a big state school. So a lot of the classes I took were kind of more broad intro classes. So fortunately, Northwestern did accept all of my credits from my previous institution. Some of them came over as more specific credits, whereas others came in as more like general credit, both of which are helpful. I think the process wasn't too bad. I mean, you just submit your transcript and they will get back to you on like what classes count for what. What was really helpful was kind of meeting with the advisors after I officially decided to go here and kind of going through class by class and figuring it out because which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but with Northwestern being on the quarter system and kind of like the academic aspect of it being a little different in terms of credits and stuff, it was hard to figure out where that distinction was between my credits at my previous school and at Northwestern. But it wasn't bad at all. And there's also like a petition process if your credits don't necessarily come over right at the start of your first quarter at Northwestern, which I also used and was successful in. So it's definitely an easy process, and the advisors definitely help kind of break it down because it can be a little overwhelming at first. But yeah.
Awesome. Have any of you added a major or minor after you transferred to Northwestern? If so, can you talk about that?
Sure, I'll talk about it. I actually came to Northwestern to change my major because they had a major here, Asian American Studies, that I wasn't even offered at my previous school. And in terms of, I guess, to kind of go off on the credits a little bit, one important thing that I want to mention is if you are on a semester school, which my previous school was on, and you have like, let's just say 4 classes a semester, that would be like around 8 classes a year. At Northwestern, students typically take 4 classes a quarter and 3 quarters a year. So that's like 12 classes. For me, what happened was they transferred all of my 8 classes and kind of made them equivalent to Northwestern classes. And then they gave me 4 empty credits. So it's not like I was 4 classes behind. So don't worry about that at all. But in terms of adding on a major, yes, I did. I kind of explored that a little bit before going to Northwestern because that's actually what I wrote my Why Northwestern on, the Asian American Studies major. And I had taken 1 or 2 Asian American Studies courses at my previous school. They transferred over, but since they were more like niche courses, they transferred broadly just as like an Asian American Studies credit, but not like a specific category of credits, which you kind of need to fulfill the major. So what I did was I reached out to the director of undergraduate studies of that major, and they were really easily be able to just kind of fit that in for me. So as Serena said, it's pretty easy, even if it doesn't work out the first time automatically.
Awesome. And I know we're learning a little bit more about the quarter system. Does anyone want to talk about the quarter system, adapting to it if that was something completely new to you? And then I would say the pros that you've seen within the quarter system.
I can start. The quarter system is obviously very different than a semester school. The same with Lena. I went to a semester school before coming here. And I guess a pro of the quarter system is, like Lena said, you take typically 4 classes a quarter and you have 3 quarters in a year. 3 quarters in a year. So you'll typically take about 4 more classes than you would at a semester school within a year. And to me, that seemed nerve-wracking at first, but honestly, so far I've loved it because I've been able to still be on track with my major and my minor, but also take other classes that I've been interested in. So because you have more of an opportunity to take extra classes. You don't have to necessarily just focus on taking your major classes and kind of that's all you do, which has been really nice. But yeah, so the course system's been good. It does move fast. Like I know everybody says that, but it is true. But it's not anything that I don't think anyone can't handle. It just takes getting used to, especially after coming from a semester school. But like all my professors I've had, if I've had like questions or like I just need a deadline pushed back because I'm still trying to figure out the quarter system, they've been really flexible to that and understanding of that transition process.
Great, thank you. So some of you have come from a bigger institution. I know, Lena, you came from a smaller institution. And in terms of class sizes, how has that transition been for you all?
That was honestly one of the major factors that I decided to leave my big state school, because I didn't feel like I had a personal connection with either the people in my class or the professors. Office hours, if you wanted to go, there would be I went to a really large state school, so my classes were between 500 to 600 people. And so if you wanted to go to office hours, there would be like 50 people there. You couldn't really develop a relationship with your professor. They wouldn't know who you were, because even if you raised your hand in class, you were kind of just a dot in the crowd. And so I really saw a big difference in coming to Northwestern. That was one of the big reasons that I wanted to come to transfer to a smaller school like Northwestern, because now even the people that I sit with in class, it kind of builds a community of who you decide to sit next to kind of on that first day or within that first week, which kind of didn't exist for me at my big school. And I have a much better relationship with my professors because they're much more accessible.
Great, thank you for that. In terms of research opportunities, internship opportunities, obviously Northwestern has a plethora of money allotted for that for all students. And something that we share within our presentations is that students can get involved in this as soon as their first year. Given that you guys are transfer students, how have you guys taken advantage of those opportunities?
I can start with this one. I'm actually doing one of the internship opportunities that Northwestern offers this quarter. So it's called Chicago Field Studies, and essentially you get to do an internship for class credit. It can be as few as like 1 or 2 credits, and then as many as all 4 credits. So I'm doing the legal field studies class. So that's a 4-credit class. It meets once a week, and then I also work like 30 hours a week for a legal advocacy organization in Chicago. So that's a really great opportunity that you can take advantage of as soon as you get to Northwestern, probably not your very first quarter, but as soon as the winter after. I know a lot of transfer students who did that. And it's a really great way to kind of get to know the area if you want to go down to the city for your internship, and also just kind of get some work experience. And yeah, that's a really great opportunity that Northwestern offers that all transfers can definitely take advantage of.
I can go next. So I'm actually a pre-medical student. So my research involves going down to Feinberg, which is Northwestern's medical school, which is in Chicago. So kind of adding on to what Lena said. This is a little bit off topic, but there's a bus that goes from Evanston's campus to Chicago called the Intercampus. And it is genuinely one of the best parts of Northwestern because it's a free ride into Chicago. So if you want an internship that's in Chicago, nothing like Ubers or having to take the train should really stop you. And so Northwestern makes it as easy as possible. And then as for the research itself, the labs, a lot of schools, it's really competitive to get into labs and everyone's kind of fighting over these spots. At Northwestern, I would say there's obviously, it's not easy to get a lab job, but professors and PIs are much more accessible because there's not as many people that are there because the school is so much smaller, and they're much more eager to bring on students because I feel like Northwestern kind of has this facilitative environment where professors really want to take people on and kind of pass on the knowledge to the younger students. So even if you're an underclassman, like I'm a sophomore, I just got to Northwestern, and I found it a great process. It was not difficult at all.
Great. and I am going to kind of pick on you because you mentioned that you're studying pre-med and things like that. In terms of our pre-med advisors at Northwestern, can you elaborate a little bit more about how you've gotten involved with that, and if you were pre-med at your previous institution and then at Northwestern, like how has that transition, and your goal to go into medical, how has that been throughout the process?
So it actually made the goal much easier being at Northwestern because I feel like the stress of figuring things out was taken off of me. At my old school, I actually didn't have a pre-medical advisor. I didn't even have a major advisor. It was kind of like drop in if you need to talk to someone. But at Northwestern, I've kind of built a personal relationship with both my general advisor and also my HPA, which is health professions advising advisor. So you're going to have, if you do come to Northwestern, you'll have a major advisor, but then you'll also, if you're on the pre-med track, have a pre-med advisor. And that was great for me. Honestly, I was stressed about research. I was stressed about the classes that I had to take. And they really kind of take the pressure off because even fitting things into my schedule, they gave advice on what classes would be best to take together or what classes I could take over the summer if I needed to make something up. And then for research specifically, there is the Office of Undergraduate Research where they give you advice as a pre-med student. They have pre-med advisors within that office that can give you advice on what labs are looking for people, how to apply for labs, how to apply for grants if you want to do research over the summer. So it's a very supportive environment if you're a pre-med student, which I think is rare for colleges. So that was one thing that I really appreciated during my transition here.
Thank you. So now we're going to shift a little bit to more social life. So again, within your transfer process to Northwestern, could you guys, all three of you, kind of take turns and elaborate on the different types of organizations that you've become involved with at Northwestern, and also how you learned about them?
I can go ahead and start. So I think I'll go with the second part of the question first. The first or second week of the first quarter, fall quarter, there's a big student organizations fair. And that's honestly where I found out about most of the clubs that I'm a part of. And so it's just a big fair where all the clubs, either on one day or another, kind of set up a booth, and you get to just walk around and kind of take flyers, or a lot of clubs pass out like random pens, stickers, whatever. And you can kind of just talk to them, get on their email list, stuff like that. Another big thing is just Instagram. I think every single club at Northwestern uses an Instagram page. So before I came, I kind of did some Googling and was like, oh, what clubs could I be interested in, and kind of followed those because they put updates on there about like their first meetings, or if they're a club that requires an interview or an application process, they kind of put that information up there as well. For myself, a few that I'm involved in is one's called SASA, or the South Asian Student Association. So I've become heavily involved with that the past almost 2 quarters. And it's just been a great opportunity to meet other people who identify as South Asian within the Northwestern community, and kind of find that those kinds of people. And that was something I had lacked a lot of at my previous school. So I was really excited to kind of find that community here. And then as well, I'm also on a dance team. It's also a South Asian performance dance team, which is like a sub part of SASA, but that's also been a great opportunity. But there are hundreds of clubs and such a broad range that I'm sure like all of us on here are probably on different ones, with probably very minimal overlap just because there's so many of them.
I can jump in next. So just to echo what Serena said, I definitely think there's something for everyone, and there's a lot of ways to find out about clubs. Like I'm sure, I mean, if you all are thinking about transferring, you're already in college and you have kind of gotten used to like the many different platforms that you have to juggle to kind of find out about certain things. So I definitely say Instagram, Facebook is a big one as well for posting big events that are happening, and then the org fair as well. And then just to say one more, we have this website called Wildcat Connection that lists all of like our official school orgs here, and you can just kind of search them by keyword and interest. So that's also just a great place to start if you have like absolutely no idea what to search for. And then in terms of what I'm involved in specifically, I'm also in a couple cultural clubs. So the Taiwanese American Student Association, Korean American Students Association. And then I go to events also of like other cultural clubs too. So you don't necessarily have to be like identify as that culture to join the club. I think most of our cultural clubs here are pretty open to anyone who's just interested in learning more. So I think those cultural clubs can be really great communities for people. And then one other club I am on, the exec board of is Asian Pacific American Coalition. So that's not necessarily a cultural club. We're just kind of a socio-political organization trying to advance social justice on campus.
Kind of adding on to what both Serena and Lena were talking about, I already talked about the MENA club that I'm in, and I think something that I really love about Northwestern is how the cultural clubs kind of make an effort to get to know each other and kind of have mixers, I guess. So 2 weeks ago or last week, I know Salsa, MENA, and I think two or three other cultural clubs had a mixer where it kind of combined students from all different nationalities, all different ethnicities from all over the world, and kind of gave them a place to interact and meet with each other. So a cultural club is not necessarily a limit, but it kind of is also a bridge to meet other people from different cultures. So there's a lot of learning involved, a lot of connection of cultures, etc. So that was something that I really liked. And then on top of that, there are different clubs. So for different like things that you want to support, like not necessarily politically, but just things that you care about. So for example, I'm part of the Student Justice for Palestine Club, which kind of advocates for that, obviously. And then I'm also in Phi DE, which is a pre-medical fraternity that kind of provides a support system for students to kind of have mentors that have done pre-med before you. So it kind of connects upperclassmen with underclassmen that are pre-med, and then kind of we have different seminars, etc., for kind of to learn more about that. So pre-professional is also an important aspect of Northwestern's clubs. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So obviously Northwestern does have a pretty large transfer population in comparison to other universities similar to us. Do you feel that majority of your friend group are transfer students, or have you been able to kind of dive out of that?
I can take this one. Within the first month, I would say all of my friends were transfers because we kind of met during Wildcat Welcome. Some of my best friends were actually in my PA group, and then our friend group kind of formed by meeting other people in PA groups. But then after kind of that first initial month of Wildcat Welcome and adjusting, meeting people through clubs is a big thing, meeting people in your classes. All of you have obviously been in college, so you understand how you can make friends literally anywhere in college, but I feel like at Northwestern there's kind of this community where everyone wants to get to know each other because it's kind of a smaller school that people will know other people, and then your friend group kind of expands. And so I wouldn't say that all of my friends now are transfers, but a majority of them are. So
Great. And obviously I don't know from where you transferred to Northwestern, but how was it adapting to like living close to Chicago within Evanston and just getting a little bit more assimilated within the Evanston community?
I can take this one just because I've been here like a little bit longer as a student. I love Evanston. I went to like a small liberal arts school on the East Coast, and it was kind of the same setup as Northwestern in that it was in a suburb that was like a little bit of a drive from a city. So in that sense, it wasn't very different. But I think Evanston has its own like charm. Like there's a lot of places to eat, a lot of good cultural cuisine. Things aren't open super late, which is something I had to adjust to. But I think overall, it's a really great place to go to school. I always feel very safe here. I feel like there's kind of a community both within like Northwestern, but also like the wider town of Evanston. And I really liked it. So I actually decided to stay here over the last summer, which also was a great opportunity to kind of get a feel for the community. And there's also a lot of opportunities, not just to get involved in Northwestern, but also involved in the town or city of Evanston. So I know a lot of people who do like volunteering at local schools. There's also a lot of community organizations here as well, the Evanston Public Library. So I think Northwestern, like, if you decide to come here, like, you are deciding to be a part of that Evanston community as well. And I think it's overall really positive.
Great. So another thing that I like to talk about is in terms of studying abroad opportunities, or just exposure to global opportunities. Have that been something that you've considered or kind of have worked throughout your past year here at Northwestern?
I can take this one. So when I started college, my biggest thing I was excited for was to study abroad, just because I have a lot of older friends and family members who were like, it's the best experience. You should totally do it. But then as a transfer student, I wasn't really sure if I would have time or it would really fit into my plan, just because I didn't want to be gone for a whole, or I guess half a year, if I studied abroad during the year. So I actually ended up deciding to study abroad over the summer. This upcoming summer, actually, I'm going to London. And so it's a perfect program because it's during the summer. It's not really during the year. But the application and kind of whole process thus far has been really easy. Northwestern honestly encourages you to study abroad. Like they constantly send emails or like study abroad here, study abroad there. And it's super easy. You just apply through a portal. You upload all your you have to upload like a transcript, and sometimes other programs require other aspects as well. And it's all through one area. So it's super easy, super centralized. But yeah, so I do know a lot of transfer students that did study abroad during the year, absolutely loved it. You can do it during the summer for like a shorter period of time, but still get the same effect. And even for the course that I'm taking in London, or the two courses I'm taking, they both still transfer over as credit for like Northwestern credits. So when I get back, so it's still like I'm still taking classes that work towards my major while being able to study abroad, which is a great opportunity. So I highly recommend, if you do end up coming here, study abroad, whether it's during the year or over the summer. I've heard, and hopefully it will be worth it.
I always tell everyone, study abroad if you can. Something for our viewers to know is most students at Northwestern traditionally do like to study abroad fall quarter, because that way they get a little bit longer time abroad, and it kind of mimics what a traditional fall semester abroad looks like. If someone wants to study abroad during winter or spring quarter, you usually have to miss both of those two quarters. So that's just something to be aware of. And obviously, like Serena mentioned, we have summer opportunities. And what's cool about Northwestern study abroad programs is your financial aid carries you throughout this time. So you're essentially paying the same thing as if you had stayed on campus. The next thing that I want to touch upon is kind of like the Northwestern student. So obviously Northwestern students wear different hats and have different interests, but how would you all describe a Northwestern student to someone that is thinking about coming here?
I'll start. This is a big question, so if anyone wants to jump in after me, feel free. I think a Northwestern student, I actually think a transfer student is like an extra Northwestern student. And I'll say this because like we come here and we like know what we want and we want to get involved, but we also don't limit ourselves as well. Like as we're going after like our goals, taking classes we want, in the back of our head, we're always like looking for new opportunities, looking to learn new things. And I think that's a very Northwestern characteristic. Like everyone in here is everyone in the school is involved in like vastly different things, like studying majors that are like seemingly unrelated, but they find some way to like bring them together and do like a really cool research project on that. So that's kind of how I would characterize Northwestern students. Everyone's doing something different. Everyone knows what they want, but is also like very open to learning more. And I think as transfers, we kind of come to the school with a lot of intention, which is something that's pretty unique to being a transfer student. You kind of have reflected a lot, like through doing the application process again, looking at schools again, and eventually deciding where you want to go, like what is best for you. And I think students here have a really good self-awareness of what is best for them, and then kind of leveraging the resources we have here at Northwestern and getting involved in the communities that then reflect that.
Thank you for that. And Serena, I have a question for you. So as a transfer student, how was it? Sorry, my emails keep going off, but how was your experience getting to know the Northwestern student body? Like, did you feel like the environment supportive for you? Your classmates, want the best for you? Like, can you talk and elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think the community here, like Lena said, it's so unique. And I always tell people, like, you will never understand what it's like to be a transfer until you are one, because it's a whole different mentality. And just because, well, obviously I have friends who also aren't transfers, but with the friends that I do have that are transfers, it's a different kind of relationship. You understand, like Lena said, you've reflected so much on the process, so it makes it easier to find people that are fitting in with that goal of yours and the reason that you came to Northwestern or any other school in the first place. And so I think just the whole environment of Northwestern has been conducive to finding those relationships. I think truly, I know we've talked about it a lot, but Wildcat Welcome was really important for me. And I think that's where I started to find my community here on campus. Additionally, like, there's just getting super involved in the clubs, and you don't have to be over involved in 20 different things, but just even one or two that you kind of hone in on and focus on, like, you will find your communities there. And I think that's what is so unique about Northwestern. For me, I think at first, even if you're doing college for the first time or the third time starting over, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking at first, kind of finding those people. But I think, like someone said before, Northwestern wants, like, they're excited to have you here, and everything throughout the process is so personalized and kind of really helping you figure out why you want to be here. And so I think because of that, it made it really easy to meet other students and even get to know, like, my advisor or kids in my classes, just because everyone has that drive and that passion for what they're studying. And you can so see that in the way that people, and the ethics and the hard work that people put into what they do in their classes or research and stuff like that. So it is really easy to find that community. You just have to be looking for it, and not lose sight of, like, your own passions while you're at it.
Great, thank you. And I have a question for you specifically about your studies. Give me a second. So what's been your favorite part about the Business Institute minor? And then what elective courses do you plan on taking under your minor?
My favorite part about the minor would probably be that I feel like biology and business is not something that's very orthodox that a lot of people do. So I feel like going into the business minor was something I chose to do in order to open things up for myself. Because as a pre-med, a lot of people just do, biology or chemistry with a minor in, like, healthcare or something like that. And I thought that I wanted to do something that would allow me to maybe take the MD that I'm hopefully going to get and apply it in different ways. So it would just kind of be a helpful thing for me to have down the line. And for the elective courses that I'm planning on taking, I don't know. There's a lot of them. And I'm still working through the initial, I actually just tacked on this minor. So I've been having this minor for a quarter and like a couple of weeks. So I haven't really thought that far down the line, but definitely if there's anything healthcare related, then I would be interested in doing that.
Great. And then I have one more question for Lena, and then I have a final question for everyone to answer. So Lena, I know that you are interested in going into law school. Can you talk a little bit more about, like, Northwestern specific law advisors and just the support system that Northwestern has for students considering law school?
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's similar and different to kind of the infrastructure we have for pre-med students. So we also have a pre-law advisor. She's always available to meet. I've met with her multiple times ever since I got here. And she really helps you, like, every step of the way throughout the process, whether you're applying, picking schools, or just, like, thinking about law school as an option in general. So that's really great. I also mentioned Chicago Field Studies. The legal field studies class is something that a lot of students who are thinking about law school do, just because traditionally in undergrad, it's a little bit harder to get law-related internships because most of those are reserved for law students. But through CFS, it's really great. We have like partnerships with smaller law firms, ranging from like IP law, intellectual property, all the way to like what I'm doing, which is more advocacy related. So I definitely recommend checking that out as like a built-in, just like automatic legal internship. You can do that either during the school year or during the summer. In terms of those resources, that's kind of the academic infrastructure. And then turning to like extracurriculars, we have also a ton of kind of law-related student organizations. So a couple would be Phi Alpha Delta is the pre-law fraternity. So they do a lot of similar things as I think the pre-med fraternity does. They have guest speakers, workshops, and then we also have Women in Law. So that's a group of identifying as women or non-binary students who are interested in the legal field, and they also have a whole host of speakers. And then one last thing I'll go into is just the legal studies major or minor. So I'm a legal studies minor. You don't have to do the legal studies major or minor to go to law school, but it's just a great way to kind of take law-related classes and learn from professors who have their JD and also be around students who are interested in law school.
Thank you for that. So I have one more question before I ask the final question to you all three. What is an expectation that maybe you all had that differed from your actual experience as a transfer student? So I know that's a little bit of a tough question. It could be about transferring, it could be about Northwestern, just like the process overall.
Could you repeat that one more time? Sorry, I think I understood it.
So what's an expectation that you had either about about Northwestern or the transfer process that differed from your actual experience?
I'll just take this one. Something that I thought going in was that the transfer process would kind of be lumping in the transfers with the freshmen. And I was kind of worried that, you know, if I was coming in as a first year, everyone would already have all of their friends that were in my year. And that definitely was not the case. I think Northwestern's a community that kind of keeps on giving. Everyone is more than willing to talk to or reach out to. And so I only have like one or two freshman friends. So if that's like what you're worried about, that you're not going to be able to find friends that are in your year, that's not the case.
Yeah.
I think I just thought of one. Definitely a hard question though. No one's ever asked that. I think an expectation that I had, which I'm sure a lot of transfer students have and some may not, was just that I honestly was really embarrassed to be a transfer student at first. I just felt like I was like, oh, people are gonna think all these things about me, like I didn't do something right, or why didn't I like my first school that I chose? And so I was really worried about kind of people thinking like that when I would get here. And I didn't realize before coming here how big the transfer student population is. I knew it existed, but I didn't realize truly, like I said, that it's just so close knit, and they really do a good job of helping you find that community. So that was an expectation that I'm glad was not met, because I truly found people that like I've been able to bond over reasons why I did leave, and realizing that I'm not the only one that had those thoughts leaving, which is really comforting to know, because I know for me, it was a really scary process, just because I didn't know if it was fully what I wanted, and I knew I needed to leave, but I didn't really know if other people would understand that as well. So I was really worried about kind of finding that community, but every transfer student I've talked to it's honestly been a bonding experience. In a way, we laugh about, like things that we don't miss about our old school, or like things that we're glad have changed here. But it is really nice to kind of have those people that understand it on a different level. Because like I said earlier, transferring is it's a whole different process, and it takes a lot of reflection. So I am happy to say that I found that community, and definitely not an expectation that was met, which was good.
Loved your
Wait,
answer.
you guys,
So sweet.
sorry.
Go ahead,
You'll
Lena.
help me come up with my answer as well. I think definitely like I did not think that being a transfer would be such a big part of my identity and like my chosen identity, not like the identity that other people put on me. Because at this point, like honestly, half the people I know probably don't even know that I'm a transfer if I didn't tell them. But I do make it a big like I do try to tell people because I think it really like shapes who I am and my perspective. And that's why we're all here on this panel. I actually applied to be like a transfer PA this year because I had a great experience during Wildcat Welcome. So I think we're just all like happy to be here. And I honestly thought the process was going to be a lot bumpier than it actually was. A lot of the things that you all said, like we're pretty well integrated into the community immediately just because of how many there are. And just like it's a constant support system from the beginning to the end of college. And yeah, I just like found like happiness here. I don't know, like I always thought like, oh my, like I'm happy in high school or happy in my old school, but like the level of just like joy I feel every day to be here is like so great. Like I wake up and I'm like excited for like all of the events that I know are happening around campus, like all the people I'm gonna see like walking down. We have this like one road that cuts down campus, and like if you walk down it, like you're pretty much guaranteed to see someone you know, and just that community has been like really surprising to me, but like in the best possible way.
Great. So I have one more question for all of you to go ahead and answer. It's a quick answer. If you had to give an advice to a transfer applicant, what would it be? Just think about yourself a year ago, 2 years ago. What advice would you give someone?
I would say don't be afraid to throw yourself into things that you think are unattainable, because I think they're much more unattainable, and Northwestern has a much stronger support system from a university than you would expect, and that you can achieve much more than you think you can if you have the right people backing you.
I guess it's a little more simple, but honestly, just do what makes you happy. I know even just making the decision to transfer, sometimes like you can let other people kind of have their say in the decision, but at the end of the day, it's all about you and what you want. So make sure you're making the decision for yourself. And even if you come here after you transfer, just like be involved in things that you truly want to be involved in, not necessarily for like a resume builder or because someone wants you to try something that you don't necessarily, or something you're not necessarily interested in. So yeah, at the end of the day, just do what makes you happy.
I would say trust why you came here in the beginning and don't forget why you came here, because I think as you go through like Northwestern or whatever school you end up transferring to, if you do, like there are going to be ups and downs, and like there may be times when you like second guess yourself or like miss your old school or like any variety of things, but you've just like done the thinking and you know what you want. I think you should just kind of trust that all the way through. Yeah, I think that's what I would say.
So, well, thank you all three for being awesome panelists. In the chat, I did drop the transfer email. So if any of you have questions of anything transfer related, the email is transfer@northwestern.edu. If you also want to talk to a current student, either from the region that you're from or who's going to study what you're interested in, feel free to Google Northwestern Purple Preview. This can match you in a conversation with a current student on campus. But it was great talking to you all, and I hope you learned a lot about Northwestern and the transfer experience. And I hope everyone has a lovely day. Bye.